Greetings, freshmen. I am going to show you on the last test that you guys took, uh, the 15-minute time limit test, there were 6 problems that really easily could be done in the calculator. And out of these 6 problems, I would say there's probably only one of them. There could have been a couple of them, but for the most part, one of them that you guys figured out kind of on your own, maybe with or without a calculator. But I just want to show you that some of these problems that we can do in the calculator, and I know we're kind of taking away the math from it if we just punch it in the calculator, but if we're trying to achieve maximum scores here, we kind of need a combination of your math know-how and maybe some technology help here. So it's okay. Don't worry about, I don't really know how to do the math behind this. We can discuss that stuff together in class. So again, 6 problems from the last test. This is from the 2013 test. And I just want to show you how you could easily do these in the calculator. So you need to have the 89, or maybe you have the Voyage. It doesn't really matter which one. Both of them will do it the same way. So number 4 on that test said, find the value of the product A times B given we've got this equation and we got this equation. Well, we can do this in the calculator. So if you go to F2 in your calculator and then do number 1, the solve command. So on your calculator screen, you'll have solve with a parenthesis already there. So here's what I want you to type in. We're going to type in this first equation. We're going to go 1, then press the divided by button. You can do A and B if you want, or we could pretend the A and the B are really the X and the Y. Because on the 89s, if you look up towards the top a little bit to the left, you'll see 3, 4 buttons. You'll see an X, Y, a Z, and a T, and you can use those as variables. So let's just say A and B are really X and Y. It really doesn't matter here. So let's call A X and B Y. So we'll do 1 over X plus 1 divided by B, or Y in this case. Find the equals button, and then 5 divided by 6. Okay, so we got that. But we're not done yet. We're going to put in this second equation also within this same line. Now, one thing you can do, and there's a couple different places that you can find this on the 89. If you have a Voyage, here's what you can do with the Voyage, because it's really easy because you have a QWERTY keypad. Put a space, use your space bar, and then type out the word and then leave another space. So again, I don't want you to think that these are underscores, but there should be a space between or before and after the word and before we type the next thing in. For those people that have the 89s, what you can do is press, if you look in the middle of your calculator up towards the top, there's a catalog button. So if you press that, and if you scroll and go to the A's and you find the and, make sure it's got the little arrow next to it, press enter, and it'll pop it in there for you. And it'll automatically put those little spaces, you can tell. So once you find the and, now we're going to go put in the second equation. So since I'm kind of running low on space here, let me take this and kind of squeeze it up. There we go. And so again, instead of A and B, we're going to do X and Y. So we'll say X plus Y equals 15 divided by 2. Now, we're going to tell it to solve for one of these variables, and it really doesn't matter which one we have it solve for. So I'm going to put comma, and I'm just going to say X, and then end the parenthesis. Okay, so I want you guys to make sure you got that all typed in. I'm going to type it in my calculator real quick. So 1 divided by X plus 1 divided by Y equals 5 divided by 6, space and space. X plus Y equals 15 divided by 2, comma X in my parenthesis. And then here's what the calculator tells me. It says X equals 3/2 and Y equals 6, or X equals 6 and Y equals 3/2. So really they just gave me the same 2 numbers over again, right? Because it didn't specify which one had to be the bigger number and the smaller number. So either A is 3/2 or A is 6, but B is just what the other number is. So here's the thing, what do they want us to find in the end? The product. So it doesn't really matter if we take 3/2 times 6 or 6 times 3/2, we're going to get the same answer regardless, and that answer is 9. Okay? So this is beautiful. The calculator did all the work for us. We still have to do something with the calculator's answer to really get the final answer. Next, I'm going to jump to number 9 on that same test. Now this one we have to do a little bit of legwork before we can really use the calculator, but it shouldn't be too much. It says the numerator of a fraction is a positive integer. And positive integer just means it's a positive whole number, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. No decimals, no fractions. And the numerator is one more than its denominator. So if I had a fraction and the top number has to be a positive whole number, do I know what that is? No. So what should I call it? Let's call it x. Now, it said the numerator is one more than its denominator. Well, if the denominator is x, then the numerator would have to be one more than that, so it would have to be x plus 1. Then it says the sum of the fraction, which is this, and its reciprocal. So sum means we're going to add to this. Its reciprocal means the flipped upside down version, which would be x over x plus 1, is 25/12. And we need to find the numerator. The numerator they're really referring to is the original numerator, which is the denominator value plus 1. Now, we've got an equation here that has one variable. You can do the math with this, but it's not really a whole lot of fun to do. That's why we can now rely on the calculator. So go back to the solve command, F2 solve, and we're going to have to use some extra parentheses in this bad boy. So new parenthesis after even, so you kind of have two parentheses back to back here. We're going to go x plus 1 in the parenthesis divided by x plus, now we don't really need a parenthesis for this x because there's only one term up there, just the x. So then x divided by, but now we do need a new parenthesis because we want to divide it by x and 1 together added. Then find your equals button. And the equals button is right below the x if you haven't figured that out yet. And then 25 divided by 12. And then there's only one thing to solve for, x. So comma x, end the parenthesis, press enter, and we're going to get, let me figure that out real quick. Boom, x plus 1 divided by x plus x divided by quantity, x plus 1 equals 25/12, comma x. Missing parenthesis, no, it's that guy right there. Now, at the very bottom of my calculator says, no, domain of result may be larger. So sometimes the calculator gives you a little warning here. So I get either x equals -4 or x equals 3. So man, there's two possible answers here, -4 or 3. But you got to remember, they said we are only dealing with positive integers. So x in this problem is 3. And before you jump to conclusions that 3 is the answer, you got to remember they wanted the numerator. And the numerator was x plus 1. So 3 plus 1 means the numerator is 4. Now, if they ask for the denominator is x and x is 3, 3 would be the answer. Number 11 says if x, the square root of x plus 14 equals x, then one solution for x is x equals k plus the square root of w over p, where k, w, and p are positive integers. Find the smallest possible value of k plus w plus p. Well, you can solve this if you want by hand, but we've got calculators. We've got some technology here. So again, let's just throw this in the calculator. Go F2 solve, find the square root button, and it automatically puts a parenthesis in there for you. Type in x plus 14, then in the parenthesis for that square root, find the equal sign, equals x. We want to solve for x, so comma x in parenthesis. Let me type this in real quick. X plus 14 in parenthesis equals x, comma x in parenthesis. And I only get one answer. It says x equals the square root of 57 plus 1 over 2. Now, that answer that we've got right here is pretty similar to the form that they said we should expect our answer to be in. Except they said k plus root w. We really have root 57 plus 1. So really the k is the 1, the w underneath the square root is the 57, and the p, the denominator, is the 2. So what do they want to know in the end? What is the sum of those three numbers? Now, really the k, the w, the p, just keep in mind, we don't want to take the square root of 57. They said we want the w, which is the number underneath the square root. So 1 plus 57 plus 2 makes for a grand total of 60, and that's the answer. 13. What is the largest integral value for which the absolute value of 3x minus 2 is less than x plus 11? So the largest integral, remember integral and integers both mean whole numbers. They didn't say positive integral value, so it could be positive or a negative answer. But again, we can type this into our calculator. So again, we can use the solve command. Even though this isn't an equal sign, we have an inequality, we can still do it. So we'll go solve, but now we need absolute value here. So people with the 89s, if you look right below the equal sign over on the left side, there's kind of a vertical bar there. That's an absolute value bar. For those with the Voyages, if you press second and K, there's a little vertical bar. Or people with the Voyages, you could just type out the command ABS and then parenthesis, and then whatever you want to take the absolute value of can go into there. But let's just use that vertical bar there. So get a vertical bar right underneath the equal sign on the 89, or second K for the Voyages, and then go 3x minus 2, then end the absolute value. Now the less than sign is on the same place on either the 89 or the Voyage. You have to press second and 0 to get the less than sign, and then x plus 11. And then again, we want to solve for x, so comma x. All right, so let me get my calculator set up here. Solve the absolute value of 3x minus 2 in the parenthesis is less than x plus 11, comma x. And the calculator tells me negative 9/4 is less than x is less than 13/2. So I want to know the largest value, which means I want to be looking more on this end, and 13/2 is 6.5. So I need the largest value that's a positive, or not necessarily positive, but is a whole number, an integer that's less than 6.5. And that largest whole number would be 6. And that's the answer. Next up, number 15. Some of you did fine on this, doing this by yourself, because you knew the exponent rules. So we can just run through that real quick here. The exponent rules, if you're multiplying two things that have the same base, you get to add the exponents. So this is really x to the 2 plus k power, and we're taking all this to the 5th. Now, if we have kind of exponent to the exponent like this, this is where we get to multiply now. But I get to distribute that 5 to the 2 and the k. So this is really x to the 10th plus 5k power equals x to the 75th. Well, if I have x here and x here, then that means the exponents really must be equal to each other. So at this point, I can take 10 plus 5k, set it equal to 75. Subtract the 10 over, get 65, divide the 5 over, and get that k is 13. But we can put this in a calculator. It's possible. I mean, I would rather just do this by hand because I know my exponent rules. But we could do solve. Then we need an extra parenthesis to start this bad boy off with. And then we can do x to the second power times x to the, and this is where if you've got a Voyage, you can easily get a k. On the 89s, you'd have to press what, alpha, where's the k at? Alpha and the EE button that's to the left of the 4 to get to a k. You can use a y if you really wanted to use a y or a z or a t on the 89. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to go with what they got here in the problem, k in the parenthesis to the 5th power equals x to the 75th. Need some space here, need some space. And then I would say, what do I want to solve for? It's not x, I want to solve for k, so comma k. So if I were to type all that in my calculator, let's see, x squared times x to the k in parenthesis, that to the 5th power equals x to the 75th, comma k in parenthesis, enter. Now the answer looks a little weird at first. It says k equals, it's ln, and then x to the 13th inside, over ln x. And this means natural log, and you really don't know what this means at this point. And it says, and x to the 13th is greater than 0. Really, it's that 13 that is our k value. So it's kind of deceiving because we don't really know what all this stuff means, but that really represents our answer there. All right, the last one I want to look at is number 19. And 19 said the product of two numbers is 24, and the sum of the reciprocals of the two numbers is 7/12. Find the larger of the two numbers. Now again, this one we have to do a little bit of setup here because we don't really have any equations. So the product of two numbers. So if we multiply two numbers, we should get 24. But they didn't tell us what variables to use here. So what would be two nice variables to use? How about x and y? So we're going to have x times y equals 24. And the sum of the reciprocals. So if I were to take x and y and flip them upside down so that I have 1 over x and 1 over y, and I add those together, the sum, I need to get 7/12. So now this is where we get to use our calculator like we did on that very first problem we did. So we're going to go solve and then go ahead and do x times y equals 24. Then here's where you need to go get the AND command again. So that was back in the catalog, or if you've got a Voyage, you can just go space, type in the word and then another space. So again, make sure there's that little space there, and there's a little space there. And then we can go 1 divided by x plus 1 divided by y equals 7 divided by 12, comma, just say x for now, it's fine, it'll solve both of them. So let me put this in here, x times y equals 24, space and space. 1 divided by x plus 1 divided by y equals 7 divided by 12, comma, x in parentheses, enter. And again, it gives me kind of two different options here. It tells me x equals 2 and y equals 12, or x equals 12 and y equals 2. Again, we got the same numbers here. It really just depends which way you want to talk about it. It really doesn't matter, though, because we want to find the larger of the two numbers. And the larger of the two numbers in either scenario is 12. And that was your answer. So hopefully I've opened your eyes a little bit into how to use your calculators a little bit more to solve things that maybe you're a little rusty on the math with. But this is an excellent way to maximize your score on these math team tests. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, write something down and bring it to me so that you remember what it is when you come talk to me about it, and we can straighten you out a little bit more. And that's all for this video.